morning, everyone. Welcome to Education USA Opportunity Funds Program Facebook Live event. Today we're going to be talking about the program and how you can apply. My name is Miss Adebayo Folashade. I work with Education USA, US Embassy here in Abuja, and I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves.
My name is Malate Atajiri, and I also am an Education USA advisor here at the US Embassy in Abuja.
I'm Fortune Emmanuel King, and I'm an Opportunity Funds Scholar for the class of 2019 here in Education USA.
All right, so Ms. Malate, what's the Opportunity Funds Program?
So the Opportunity Funds Program is a program, not a scholarship, that the US Embassy or the US government funds, where we work with high-achieving, low-income students to help them navigate the application process, and we also provide financial support in terms of the upfront costs related to applying to schools in the US.
So how can people apply for the program?
So the application is online. The application is on the US Embassy website, and we take applications from undergraduate students as well as graduate students. So undergraduate students who are currently in SS3 or who graduated last year and have their WIEC results can apply for the undergraduate cohort. And for the graduate cohort, we are looking for students that we consider high achieving, so students that have a first class or a 2-1 in preferably a STEM related field, so science, technology, engineering, or math.
Can you explain what the upfront cost means?
So applying to schools in the US can have some financial implications that tends to prevent some people who are high achieving from even engaging or starting the entire process. So for you to apply to schools in the US, you need to first of all get your transcripts. Some Nigerian universities charge upwards of 30 or even 50,000 naira for a student to get a transcript. If a student wants to apply to, let's say, 5 schools, that's already 250,000 naira on just the transcript alone. Then another thing that students also need to get when applying to schools in the US would be certain standardized exams. So depending on your standardized test, some of these exams can cost upwards of $100 or even $200 for the exam. And then we even have the category of students that are able to secure this full scholarship to go to the US to study, but are not able to come up with the funds for them to even pay for their flight tickets. So there's several upfront costs that come with applying or even going through the application process, and that's where we come in as the US Embassy. We find those students that have that potential of securing full funding, of going in at US colleges and universities. However, they have that financial barrier preventing them from taking advantage of this opportunity.
Is this a scholarship? Where did the scholarship come from? There's this myth about, oh, Opportunity Fund is a scholarship, you know, we're applying for a scholarship program. How do you explain this to Nigerian students? Where do the scholarship to go to the US, where does it really come from?
So, Opportunity Funds Program is not a scholarship in the sense that we do not give students $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year to go to the US to study. So it is not a scholarship. What it is a program where we work with students that are high achieving, have the potential of securing scholarships from US schools, and we help them to see how they can get these funds to pursue their education. So scholarships to study in the United States of America primarily really come from the colleges and universities that you apply to. So you submit applications to schools in the US, and those schools, if they have scholarships available, look at your application and determine whether or not you are a good fit for their institution. If they like what they see on the application and you require financial assistance for you to attend their university, and they have those finances to give to you, those schools, if you apply and you qualify, would then give you the financial assistance to attend their institution.
So can we break down the different types of scholarships undergraduate students get in the US? and the different kinds of assistantship that the graduate students get in the US, because at the graduate level we don't like calling it scholarship because it's assistantship position. They will have to work as a teaching assistant or graduate assistant or research assistant, and on the graduate level typically is merit based or financial aid. Can you just throw a little more light to that?
Okay, so at the undergraduate level, financial aid is a better term that we use when we're talking about assistance or funding to go to the US to study. So financial aid comes in two forms. One, we have the merit-based scholarships or merit-based funding, which is based on a particular merit. So schools can say, if you meet a certain requirement, so you have a certain standardized score test, your GPA meets a certain requirement, or you can also have schools that have maybe scholarships of merit-based aid based on talent, so maybe sports or being able to play a musical instrument very well. So it's based on a particular talent, and most times it is a fixed amount of money. Once you meet the requirements, some schools might require an additional application process, but most schools automatically give you the funding once you have applied and you meet the particular requirements of that scholarship. And on the other hand, we have what we actually call need-based financial aid. And what that means is that all fingers are not equal. I can have 5 students who all want to apply to my university, all meet the criteria academically. However, they have differences in terms of their financial capacity to afford my university. So let's take a university that costs about $50,000 a year, for example, and they have a merit-based scholarship for students that have a certain ACT or SAT score, and they have a certain GPA requirements. And for students who meet that requirements, the school automatically gives them, for example, $20,000. So these students are each left with $30,000 to pay. If a school is a need-based institution, they will then consider the financial background of that particular student. So you might have one person applying whose parents are unemployed, you might have another person whose parents are civil servants, you might have another person applying whose parents are business owners. So they all have varying levels of financial capacity. So schools will now take those differences into account to see what additional assistance or what need that student has in order to make up the difference to attend the institution. So you might have a situation where 5 students apply to the same institution, however, they end up paying different things based on the assessment of their financial capacity.
And that means you can have 5 kids going to the same school. One gets a full financial assistance, the child doesn't have to pay anything, and you have other people who will pay so much money, and the parents start wondering, how come my own child don't have full scholarship and this person's child have full scholarship?
Yes, that happens quite a lot. So you might have 5 students apply to the same university. They might even have very similar test scores, but they might end up paying completely different things. One person might have a full scholarship, meaning they're not paying anything. You might have another student who maybe has a tuition waiver, so they only have to pay for their living expenses. And you might have also another student who has the same test scores as the other students, but based on their finances, the school determines that they do not need any financial aid to attend that school.
So then at the graduate level, we don't like using the word scholarship or financial aid. We like using the word assistantship position. So at the graduate level, graduate students can apply for research assistantship, teaching assistantship, graduate assistantship, and I think that's it. So you have the opportunities to apply for these assistantship positions, and if you qualify, it typically will waive tuition fees for you. Just for us to know that the scholarship doesn't come from Education USA, it doesn't come from Opportunity Funds Program. The scholarship itself will come from schools in the US. I think we have a lot of myth out there about us being a scholarship program. So, Ms. Malate, where do most of the students come from? The undergraduates, the graduate students. In the past, where do you get these students from? How do you recruit them?
Okay, so most of our students at the undergraduate level come from public secondary schools. So schools like Federal Government Academy in Suleja. We also have a school for the gifted in Gwagwalada. We also have students from some private schools like Baptist High School in Jos and St. Paul's Academy in Jos as well. If you attend a private school here in Nigeria, we would be interested in knowing how much your fees cost and who has been the person supporting you to attend that particular secondary school. At the graduate level, most of our applicants come from public universities here in Nigeria. So we have students coming from schools like UNN, schools like Federal University of Technology in Minna. We also have applicants from Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, and also applicants from University of Ilorin and University of Ibadan. So we work with students all over Nigeria.
Alright, so we naming out this institution does not mean that these are the only schools that we get applications from. We're just talking about our success stories, and most of the students who have left the office in the last 3-4 years, these are the trends that we see, students coming from these universities and secondary schools that you mentioned, right?
Yes, and we're always looking out for other students, schools. We try as much as possible to do outreach, to touch or reach schools that we have not maybe had applications from or contact from. So that doesn't mean that these are the only schools we accept applications from. Every year we accept applications from applicants from all over Nigeria, and as long as you meet the requirements, we will work with you.
What is the selection process? How do we go through the selection process?
So the application opens in April of every year. So if you do not apply this year, you also have the chance to apply next year. But the applications open every year in April and they close in May. When the applications close at the end of May, we go through a shortlisting and screening process where we then invite and select some applicants to come for the interview process. The program actually kicks off in April and then it lasts for an entire year. So the application process of trying to go to the US to study is a 9 to 12 month process. So the applications or the program starts in August, and then students should be expecting to depart to the US the next August.
So Fortune, how did you hear about the program last year?
I heard about the program from a friend. He was just online browsing, and he found the program and he saw the requirements and he thought I fit in perfectly. So he contacted me and I began applying.
So where did you apply from?
I was in Benin at the time when my friend contacted me, and at the time, for me, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have what to use to apply. So I found a friend though that lended me devices, and I was able to use his, and I applied to the program, online.
So what was the most surprising part of the process for you?
Of the application? Okay, when I began the application, I was thinking, okay, just upload your award menu, what your achievements, then I saw essays and I'm like, what are they doing with the essays? Okay, it's something I've not seen anywhere before. It was unique, and so I like a challenge, so I was like, this is interesting. So I took the challenge, I got writing essays, and it was a fantastic experience.
So how did you go through the program? Did you come to Abuja after you were selected? How did you navigate through the process? Can you just explain?
Okay, we were contacted in late July for the interview and for the selection process, the selection interview. So I came over to Abuja and I was selected. So I was informed to come around August 12th, to resume August 12th for the boot camp and everything. So I came. I had an aunt in Abuja. Yes, she stays in Abuja. So I came to stay with my aunt in Abuja, and I come every day, right? During that time, the boot camp, we're being taught success tips for the SAT. So, and we're provided with books. There are materials in the library here at EducationUSA that you can use to prepare for the SAT. And the advisors that advise to you concerning, okay, how do you improve your score? what do you do to improve your score. We had a lot of webinars during that period telling us about school selection, essay writing, a lot of interesting essay writing seminars. Schools came to talk, and everything was just so enlightening. And so the first part of the process for me was just the first part of the process for me was the SAT, was writing the SAT, and I took 2 months to prepare for that, and I wrote the SAT successful at
So
that.
you think that was the most challenging process for you?
For me, the most challenging part of the whole was essays again. So I coming back to essays. After writing the SAT, which is the academic part of the application, the application process is holistic and requires you to show more than just the academic side of yourself, your academic prowess. So after writing the SAT, filling the application, you come to the part where you have to write your essays, where you have to depict yourself in words, in essays. So I had a major problem with the essays, but with thorough advising, rewriting over and over again, I was able to scale through my essay problems. I was able to come up with a good essay, good application, and apply to schools.
So when did you apply to school?
I applied to school in early November. I applied November 1st. That was the deadline for my application. So I applied before November 1st, and I got my decision December 15th.
Where are you heading to?
I'm heading to Northwestern University, Evanston.
Where's that?
Evanston,
Where's that? Where's Evanston?
Illinois.
I'm glad you asked that question. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so thank you, Fortune. Is this a scam? Are you flesh and blood? Shall I touch you? It's flesh and blood. Okay.
Okay. It's not a scam at all. When I saw it at first, on first view, I was like, okay, it may be a scam. Then I looked at, when you begin to see the application process, what you have to go through to apply. There's no scam that you have to write essays to apply for. There's no scam that you get invited to the US Embassy to do an interview. So I knew for sure that this is authentic.
Great. All right. So, Ms. Malati, for students who do not qualify, like when they apply, do you contact them?
So everyone is contacted at the end of the selection process to know whether or not you've been invited for the interview, or whether or not we would still like to work with you through the Education USA membership program. So the Opportunity Funds program is just one aspect of what we do here at the US Embassy, specifically at the Education USA office. We also have a membership program where we work with students who are interested in going to the US to study, but are able to maybe come up with the upfront cost of supporting themselves through the application process. So everyone is contacted, and we also invite students to join our membership program as well. And last year, our Education USA cohorts, so including those that are part of the Education USA Opportunity Funds program and those who are just members of Education USA, we were able to secure about $9 million in scholarship for people that were part of our membership program. So not being selected for the Opportunity Funds program does not mean that you cannot go through this process and be successful. I always tell students that there is a difference between having the capacity to pay $200 for GRE or $180 for TOEFL, or being able to pay $150 for ACT or $100 for SAT, and then being able to pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. So those are two different things. So just because you're not selected for the Opportunity Funds program does not mean that your dream of going to the US to study on funding or partial funding is not possible.
I'm going to emphasize on that. Really, if you don't get into the Opportunity Funds program, it does not mean you cannot go through the process. You can go through the process and also be able to qualify for scholarship in the US. We're now going to take questions online. We have a question from Falade Kunle. Ms. Malati, do students have to come back home after they graduate from school in the US?
So Depending on what you studied, you have the option of what we call OPT, optional practical training, where students can stay for about a year getting hands-on experience in their field. But then for those who are in the STEM, who graduated with majors in the STEM category, they do get an extension that gives them a bit more time to stay on and carry on hands-on research. But our goal is for you to go to the US, study, and come back to Nigeria and see how you can take this knowledge to develop our country.
And on you were on a F1 student visa. The reason you have an F1 student visa is a non-immigrant visa.
Yeah.
You will need to come back home after study in the US and come build capacity. We need to build capacity in Nigeria, so we need to come back home. Do we need to do the English proficiency tests?
So, test of English or proving your proficiency in English is a requirement by a lot of universities, especially at the graduate level, because of the form in which your funding comes. If you're going to be applying for any form of graduate assistantship positions, so you plan on being a teaching assistant, meaning as a PhD or master's candidate in, for example, the chemistry department, the school is going to need someone to grade or facilitate some of the lectures or classes in some of the lower level chemistry classes. Schools need to be confident in your ability to communicate in English. So if you're someone who is interested in applying for any form of assistantship positions, especially at the graduate level, submitting a test of English score, either the TOEFL exam or the IELTS exam score, is necessary.
All right, so why is the program not open to everyone? Someone is asking.
So the program for the Opportunity Funds program, due to limited resources, we can only work with a limited amount of students, and we also don't want to spread ourselves out too thin. So we are seeking students that have a first class or a strong 2-1 in a STEM related field. And one of the reasons why we emphasize on STEM is because at the graduate level, most especially, these are the fields that you have research. So when we're talking about the teaching assistants and the research assistants and the graduate assistants, shaped positions, these are more likely to occur in the STEM fields.
Someone is asking us about, he has a scholarship from a school of about $15,000 and he has a balance of $42,000. How can we help? Just as we mentioned before now, the U.S. Embassy is not a scholarship organization. We do not give out scholarship to students. We'll only help you navigate through that process of getting a scholarship from a U.S. school. So Patrick, if you had worked with us for the last 12 months, we would have worked with you in such a way that you can find schools that you will qualify either for a graduate assistantship or a teaching assistantship or a GA position, and or at the undergraduate level, we'll work with you to see how you can qualify for a merit-based scholarship. That's that's the best we can do, but we typically do not give out scholarship, or we actually not a scholarship organization, so we don't have scholarship for Nigerian students or for international students. So 5 steps.
Yes, so to go along with Patrick's question, so applying to a school and getting a partial scholarship, and then now you're at the end of the road and you have such a huge amount of money to pay. This is, there are 5 steps that we need to go through in order for us to actually be successful with this entire process. So the first step is for us to actually research our options, and in terms of researching our options, we need to ask ourselves questions like, 1, what do we want to study? That's very important. We might have almost 5,000 colleges and universities in the US, but not every institution offers every single course. And at the graduate level, not every school offers your particular research interests. So you always want to be looking out for universities or schools where there will be a good fit. So one thing you want to definitely ask yourself is, what do I want to study, and what type of degree do I want to go for, and what type of institution am I looking to attend? Before you begin any application to a US school, you need to ask yourself step 2, which is financing your studies. In financing your studies, you need to ask yourself 2 very important questions. Question number 1, who is going to pay for my studies? Question number 2, if you do have someone, how much can that person afford? We need to know the answer to those 2 questions before we even start applying to any school at all. If we know our financial capacity and we don't have the funding at all to apply or to pay tuition or to pay any fees, then we know that we need to apply to those schools that have the funding to give us. So if we're applying to a school that has a policy where they only have a partial scholarship to give us, but we are students that require full funding, then at the end of the day, after we've taken all our exams and all that, it would have been for nothing because we still cannot come up with that difference. So before you start applying to any school, you need to know what your finances are like. Are you someone that has $10,000, $20,000, $30,000? The bigger your budget, the more options and more schools you can apply to. There are few schools or limited schools that offer full funding to students, and these funds are available, but they are highly, highly competitive. So you also need to look inwardly at yourself and ask, do I have what it takes to compete for those funds? Then step 3 would be for us to actually complete an application. Fortune mentioned earlier that you have the application process being holistic, so it's not just about academics, there are other elements to the application process as well. So what does it take to complete an application to a US school? You definitely want to make sure you send your transcripts, depending on if the school is asking for an official or unofficial transcript. You also need to think of or find out what standardized exams is the school asking you to take. At the undergraduate level, most schools would require you to take the ACT or the SAT exam, and some might also want you to submit an English proficiency score. At the graduate level, most graduate programs accept the GRE exam, that's the graduate record examination, and then you also need to think about taking the English proficiency test, so that's maybe TOEFL. But apart from standardized tests, we also have the qualitative part of the application, and that's where your recommendation letters are important. So you need at least 3 letters of recommendation. Graduate students going for PhD programs or going for research-focused programs, we advise that all 3 letters of recommendations come from an academic background. So someone, a lecturer, a professor, someone that you have worked with that can speak to your abilities. And then at the undergraduate level, we need 1 letter of recommendation from your school's guidance counselor and 2 from any 2 teachers of your choice. Then, just like Fortune mentioned, one of the challenging parts of the application process is using limited words to tell your story, which is the personal essay. So numbers don't always give a full picture of an individual, and that's where we always give students the opportunity to say something about themselves and give us a better understanding of who they are as a person. So you'll be required to write certain personal essays, but at the graduate level we call it a statement of purpose. And graduate students will also be required to submit their CV. So these are some of the requirements needed to complete an application to schools in the US before finally hopefully you'll be accepted with the funding that you need. Then we can now think about step 4, which is applying for your student visa, and then finally step 5, preparing for departure to the US.
So talking about student visa, in Education USA, we have a visa orientation May 15th. You can actually RSVP for the visa orientation. It's open to the public if you've been accepted and you have an I-20. And we'll also have another one coming up June 19th. You can also RSVP through Abuja Education USA at state.gov email, and you can also attend that session as well. So that's it for visa orientation. We had a question about we're doing a good job, but why we're not open to students with tutu. And we're open to students. Our membership program actually accommodates students with 2-2, but when you're looking for scholarship, you have to go beyond 2-2 grade. It has to be you have to be academically competitive enough to apply globally, and that's the reason we're looking for strong GPAs, 2-1 first class for the program. However, you don't have to be an opportunity fund student to navigate through the process of applying to schools in the US. That means if you have a 2-2, strong research background, you can still be eligible to get some form of assistantship positions in the US, and that's the reason why you can join the membership program, and advisors can also help you navigate through that process. It doesn't have to be through the Opportunity Funds program. The only difference with Opportunity Funds program is that the embassy pays the upfront cost. So if you have a 2-2 and your parents can afford to pay for your GRE, your TOEFL, or your SAT, then you can also go through the process and compete as well. You just need to emphasize that you don't have to be first class, or you don't have to be 2-1 before you can navigate through the process of applying to schools in the US. So, Melati, do you have any other question?
So there's a question there about, is PhD applicable? So for you to get accepted into a PhD program, the US educational system is flexible in such a way that you can get accepted into a PhD program with just a bachelor's degree. So when we work with graduate students, we work with students who are applying for both master's and PhD programs, not just those applying for master's programs. Most of our Opportunity Fund students, scholars at the graduate level, are actually recent graduates who are accepted and are going straight into a PhD program with just their bachelor's degree from Nigeria.
Actually, most of our courts this year
are going for PhD programs.
Yes. And people are always asking the question, oh, can I go straight into a PhD program? I'm like, yes. You can apply straight into a PhD program. Somebody's asking a question about what are the opportunities for graduate students. And we talked about the assistantship positions that we have at various US institutions that you can apply to. So you can apply for a research assistantship, or a teaching assistantship, or a graduate assistantship. And if you're super smart, you can qualify for a fellowship program as well at the institution. Just to go back a bit, Ms. Malate, what is the Opportunity Funds program?
So the Opportunity Funds program is a program, not a scholarship, that we have here at the US Embassy, where we work with high achieving, low income students who have the ability to secure scholarships and funding from US institutions, but they lack the financial capacity to support themselves or the knowledge to support themselves through that process. And that's where we come in, where we support them with the upfront costs, associated with applying to schools in the US.
Can HND students, HND graduates apply for the program? And for EducationUSA membership program, we do not accept HNDs, but you can apply to schools in the US. We'll strongly encourage you to evaluate your credentials, maybe go through the World Evaluation Service or the Education Credential Evaluators. Yeah, ECE or WES or WES. And with that, you can actually apply to schools in the US. Anyone can become a member of EducationUSA, but our membership program is 1,200 application form. You can go ahead and talk about that.
Alright, so for you to join our membership program, we actually have a weekly general orientation that holds every Wednesday. In Abuja, it holds at the Center for Arts and Culture in Area 10, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we also have counterparts in Lagos who also have a weekly orientation session that holds at the US Consulate in Victoria Island, also on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. So after you attend one of the sessions on a Wednesday, then you can have a one-on-one with the advisor present, who would now determine whether or not you qualify for our membership program. But for students to qualify for our membership program, you need to have a minimum of a 2-2 at the graduate level. And for those who want to apply to our program at the undergraduate level, if you have graduated from secondary school, then we would need to see your WAEC results. However, students can also register with our membership program in SS2.
All right, somebody asked a question about NECO or WAEC, or we do accept NECO or WAEC once it's an accredited examination here in Nigeria. We have a question about if you have an I-20 with a zero deficit on the or if you have an admission with zero deficit on your I-20, do you still need a bank statement? I would encourage you to go with a bank statement, because you still need to pay for your flights, you still need to pay for some personal expenses that you would need while in the US. So I would strongly encourage you to go with a bank statement, but not a bank statement that will have to show maybe all the $80,000 that you have to pay or $50,000 you have to pay, but something to show that at least you have some finances that can support your education while you're in the US. We do have our graduate student in the house, Ms. Patient, and we want her to join us at this point in time. I need to read the badge. So fortunately, you want to start, so you have this patient. So Ms. Patient was one of the Opportunity Funds Program participant for the last 2 years.
2017.
2017. So Ms. Patient, can you explain to us, looking at the camera, what is your roller coaster story of how you got to know about Opportunity Funds and how you navigated through the process? Please don't omit the story about you didn't get admission last year. Very important.
Okay.
Because being an Opportunity Fund student does not mean you must get a scholarship in the US.
True.
People still go through that process and don't get a scholarship or get an assistantship position, and they have to reapply. So,
Okay.
your name and the name of your school.
My name is Patience Paul, and school I'm going to.
No, your school in Nigeria.
Okay, I graduated from University of Ilorin, microbiology. So a friend told me about Opportunity Funds, the Opportunity Funds program, so I applied, and thankfully with all the drama I got in, and the process started. It started with preparing for GRE and TOEFL. So I wrote the GRE and TOEFL and started my application process, searching for schools, and also the school that, not just searching for just any school, looking for a program that has what you want to do, like the research interest, contacting professors and all that. So the first year I applied 2017, 2018. Okay, my applications went in late, I will admit, and then supporting document didn't also get in on time. So the first year I missed out. There was no offer for me, so I had to start the process again. It was devastating and all that, but my advisors encouraged me, so I picked up again and started early. 2018, 2019, started early, started reaching out to schools and to professors, and got quite some positive responses. So I put in for my applications like around September, October. Yeah, before the end of October I was done with almost all applications except for one that I waited because I wanted to have a Skype interview with the professor before putting in the application. And the application process has to do with okay, first of all, reaching out to knowing what you want to do, and then looking for schools, not just going by the name of the school. Yeah, some schools can be fine, like top schools, but then what you really want to do is not, your research interest is not just there. So like, for example, I wanted to work, I'm a microbiology major, but I hate viruses, so anything that has to do with virology. So you see, you might have programs with good microbiology program, but what's the research interest? What really because for PhD program, it's research, and then you're going to measure, zero in on something specific. So you don't just go in for something general. There might be a microbiology program, true, but what's the area of research? I wanted to work on antimicrobial resistance. So you actually go down to looking at the profile of all the professors in the department. What are they doing? Is what they are doing, are you interested in it? Because PhD is a long journey, so you wouldn't, it's stress on its own, and you wouldn't add to the burden by going in for something you just want to manage through it. So you want to go for something you really are passionate about. I think that will make it more easier for anyone. So I had many schools with good microbiology programs, but when people ask me and I say I've still not found the right school, like they be like, no, this program, their microbiology is good. Yes, microbiology, but what are they doing in the microbiology? So finally I zeroed in on like 4-5 schools that I applied to. And then it's very important, some schools will tell you before you apply you must have a faculty sponsorship. Like you must contact professors that will be willing to fund you, because it's research. Mostly you get funded from the grants that the professor has. So it's important early on, like you don't even have to wait till you start applications. Just start reaching out to professors very, very early enough. I think that is key, because sometimes when it's time for application review, you get in there and, okay, a professor really, really wants you because he has had like Kenneth, yes, Kenneth has professors who were replying him and all that. So even when maybe the admission committee is not like willing to let you in, a professor who has zeroed in on you will like, I want this person, will speak for you. And yeah, from getting a professor who is willing to fund you. So sometimes, if I like Kenneth to advise, if they are not willing to say come in, don't even go there, don't apply. But for some schools make it clear, like you must have a faculty sponsorship. Like for FIU, they tell you you are even going to submit with your application material a letter, like the Gmail response the professor gave you. It's part of your application material. So for that kind of school, it's not just advisable to do it by faith and say, even though I didn't get a response, let me just, these people know what they are saying because they know where the money is going to come from, so you don't expect a miracle to happen.
What was the most challenging part of the application? Like, what would you say was most challenging? The
most challenging part for me was getting recommendation letters. Like, it was the most challenging part, because I went to 2 schools. That made it much more frustrating, and then having to go back to the schools to seek recommendation letter. The letter itself was not the issue.
Using the ED
email
addresses.
Yes. So most of the professors, I mean most of the lecturers in Nigeria, kind of like, they don't use their EDU email that much, official email that much. So in fact, one of the schools, I had to go open the EDU email for my lecturer. So it was very, very taxing, like traveling the bad routes and all, and trying to get recommendations letters sent in on time, not just any time.
Was the GRE challenging as well?
Wow. GRE was very, very challenging. I have a funny story about the GRE that I don't think...
No, you actually share it. You should share it. Really.
Okay, so...
Because you took the GRE twice.
Yeah.
The first score was great. You wanted to do something better.
And okay, so after the first time I decided, okay, I can do better now that I know what the exams is. But I think the preparation for my second GRE was not even coordinated to start with. I had a job then, so I just knew that I already know these questions, like what else am I reading for? I just did a shabby preparation thinking I would do better. And in fact, on the exams day, I was just answering the questions and going. And then when I saw this score, I was like, there must be a mistake somewhere. That was what I felt. So the first score was great, and I ended up using the first score.
Oh, great. We have a question about someone wants to apply for a postdoctoral opportunity in economics. How can we assist? Just as Patient mentioned, we will strongly encourage you to contact professors in the schools that you're interested in applying to and see if they have those kind of opportunities available for you. We also have a question about, I'm a graduate student of medical laboratory science with Tutu, and I want to pursue a master's in global health in the US. How can I benefit from the program, Ms. Malati?
So with the Tutu with microbiology science, you can actually register for the EducationUSA membership program, and we can help you navigate the process of going to the US to study.
All right, so when's the visa orientation again?
So the visa orientation, the first one that happens in May, that's May 15th, 2019. And in order for you to attend this particular orientation, we would need to see a copy of your I-20 showing that you already have admission to a US school. And you can RSVP by sending an email address to us. And our email address is abujaeducationusa@state.gov. Or you can go to our Facebook page and we'll post more information about the visa orientation for May. We also have another one happening in June. It's June 19th, 2019. And that one is going to happen at the Center for Arts and Culture in Area 10 on Wednesday.
Patient, question for you. Did you have any regret, like maybe I would have done this at my undergraduate level that I didn't do? Maybe if you had known you were going to navigate through this process, did you have any regrets that maybe while I was in school, I would have done A, B, C, or D, and maybe that would have helped you better in your application?
Yeah, I do have regrets about my undergraduate. Like, while in school, I wasn't so serious about. I knew I was doing project, but publishing the project wasn't topmost in what I wanted to do. If I had publication, I think it would have made the process very, very easy, because you're going for research, and then you have to show that you are passionate about this. So what did you do for undergraduate? You should have something to say about it. And also extracurricular activities, not just any kind of activity, not just being class rep, but like participating in clubs that make impact, like doing things, some outreaches, like maybe a Red Cross or something, but like something community service. Yes, participating very much in community service and having something to show for it, not just saying you did this, but like having something to show for it. Like when in school, most of us were just our books and our books and our books, and that was all. But this whole process, they want to know that you are not just, it's not just about book. It's about the community, the people. Your research is supposed to affect people's lives. So you should have done something that shows that you are passionate about the community. So extracurricular activities that have impact on the community is something I would advise anyone who is preparing for this process to like give attention to.
Okay, so when you started the process, did you think it was kind of easy, or I was an opportunity fund and this is kind of, did you expect the kind of work that you met, or it was, I don't know, what was your intake of the program entirely?
I was actually thinking it's okay. What I experienced was much more than I thought. Like the process is, I think it changes you completely. It's very rigorous, so you need to brace yourself for it. It's demanding, because it's not that you're in opportunity funds and that means you have scholarship already. No, you are going to get the scholarship yourself. You are only going to be guided to get it.
Repeat that again, please. You're going to get the scholarship
Question:
yourself.
do we apply to schools on behalf of our students?
No. So you do the application yourself, you get the scholarship yourself, you get the admission yourself, you get the offer, you get the funding, get everything yourself. You're only going to be guided, and then maybe the process is much more easier because you have our wonderful advisors at your beck and call. They would always respond to you anytime, and you have every resources you need, but you are going to get it yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think we have a question from Tobe, who says, do you assist students aiming for fall admissions? So most of our students going to the US to study, if you're seeking funding, we strongly advise you to apply for fall term and not the spring term. Fall is considered the beginning of the school year, so that's when the school looks at its budget and sees how much money it has, and then basically gives out most of the funding in the fall. So for students who are applying for spring, most of those students are students that are just looking for admission, not necessarily significant funding. And that is the reason why our program starts in August, against students going the next August, which is when the fall semester starts.
All right, so we're going to bring Ms. Soma in, and let's talk to Ms. Soma about his school. Is very popular. Almost everybody from that school end up going to the US. Is that correct, Ms. Soma? Or
Yes,
just
ma'am.
10% out overhyped?
So if you want to introduce yourself,
Introduce yourself.
what school do you attend and what school are you going to?
I'm Okolocha Amesoma, and I went to Federal Government Academy Suleja, and I'm going to go to Washington and Lee University.
What are you hoping to study at Washington and Lee?
I'm planning on majoring in engineering.
So
How did you get to know about the school?
Okay, I met Miss Malate, and she gave me some list of schools. So then I went to do my research at home, and I liked the school. So
How
I
did you get
applied.
to know about Opportunity Funds program?
I was informed by a teacher in my school because most of our students always do the program. So they told some of us to apply. Then we applied and we got invited.
So what advice do you have for prospective applicants?
For prospective applicants, they should not give up easily, because you might not always get it the first time. So you should continue to strive on, and at the end, you'll surely get it.
What did you think you did really well that you can say kudos, like, you know what, Miss Soma, you did a good job during this process?
Okay, during my essay, I wrote the essay like up to 7 times. His manager always telling me to rewrite. So while rewriting, every time you write, you have to dig deeper into yourself and like find out more about who you are and what you can tell your admission committee about who you are. So it was very challenging for me.
Just 7 times.
It was much, but I can remember that all 7 times getting.
It was just like difficult to have it to write it. So Ms. Manati, can you explain what the upfront cost means for people who are just joining us?
Okay, so the upfront cost of applying to schools in the US, a lot of individuals have some financial barriers for them securing all these full scholarships to go to the US to study. So let's take Mesoma, for example, who now has full funding to go to the US to study at Washington and Lee. But in order for him to get this opportunity, he had to take standardized exams. He had to pay some application fees to schools. He has to apply for the student visa. He also has to buy a flight ticket to take him to Virginia, where his school is situated. So these are some of the costs that the embassy takes care of. So we did not give him a scholarship in terms of, we are not, how much is your school again?
72 in total.
So his school is about $72,000 a year for the next 4 years for his bachelor's program. So the US Embassy does not sign a check and give it to Mesoma to go to Washington and Lee to study engineering. However, we paid for his standardized tests. We pay for his application fees. We pay for his visa fee. And we are going to pay for his flight tickets for him to go to the US to take advantage of this scholarship or this funding that he has been able to secure through our help.
So what's the deadline for this application process?
So the applications opened in April 15th, and they're going to close at 31st of May. So you have just 1 more month to recommend students to apply, to finish your applications, to share with as many high-achieving, low-income students that you feel can compete for this program.
So what's the percentage of the number of opportunity fund students versus the regular members who come through the EducationUSA program?
So in terms of
just wanting people to know that we actually have more people who are members.
So I think opportunity fund students, I would say they're maybe just 10%. 10% of our membership of our entire EducationUSA cohorts. So opportunity fund students are just a small percentage of the entire group of students that we work with. And that's why, even though you're not selected for the opportunity funds program, we do have a membership program where EducationUSA can actually work with you hands-on. So in terms of helping you rewrite your essay 7 times, yes, we can do that. However, we might not be able to pay for your GRE or your SAT or your ACT. But in terms of all the advice, all the assistance, and all the support that we can give to make sure that you are successful with this process, we can render all that assistance.
So we strongly encourage students, if you're not part of the Opportunity Funds program, we strongly encourage you to be part of the EducationUSA membership program, and advisors are there to help you, support you through the whole process. And that's actually very, very key. We do have several success stories of students who are not Opportunity Funds students, who are regular members, who also get full scholarship, partial scholarship, who get assistantship positions as well, and they're not Opportunity Funds students. So we encourage everyone to apply. And if you don't get it, please remember that there's another way you can be a member and also go through the program. So any last words of advice, last minute conclusion we want to give before we end up? Ms. Patient, do you have any last minute thing you want to say?
Apply.
Apply for the program.
Apply for the program, or more importantly, if you're in Abuja or you're in Lagos, try and make it to one of our weekly general orientation sessions. You get a lot of information. There are a lot of myths out there about studying in the US, what the process is like. So you might as well come and get the first-hand, reliable, accurate information straight from the source in terms of how to actually navigate through this process properly. So every Wednesday at 10 a.m., Center for Art and Culture in Abuja, or the US Consulate in Lagos in Victoria Island.
For me, my conclusion is going to be, don't allow distance be a barrier. Don't say I'm in Port Harcourt, I'm in Benin, I'm in Zaria, I'm in Sokoto, and I can't go through the process. Really, I think most of the students you've spoken with today do not even live in Abuja. They took out time to come to Abuja to go through the process. I will also have virtual advising where we actually advise students who do not live in Abuja. And for your information, most of the students in the Opportunity Fund cohort, especially the graduate students, do not even live in Abuja, and we're able to navigate them through the application process. So get on the computer, get on your phone, and apply. Thank you very much. Au revoir. Au d'abord.